everybody, how are we doing tonight? I had a rough day. And what do Italians do when they have a rough day? They cook and drink. So, per a request, I am making homemade pasta with a KitchenAid. Now I want to let you know, you do not have to have a KitchenAid to make homemade pasta, but the recipe would be different. If I was making this by hand, I would be adding in more egg yolks to make the pasta softer and easier to work with by hand and easier to cut. You'd use a pizza cutter to get it into pieces that you wanted. So it's possible, but let's face it, I like it easy. So we are using a KitchenAid mixer. In here I have 3 cups of all-purpose flour. So let's talk about flour for a minute. Semolina flour. Most pastas that you see, the better pastas, are made with semolina flour. That's fine. If you want to use 50-50, that's great. But I will let you know this. It is tougher to work with. The flour it's more granular. And so there's a lot more work that's going to be involved as far as mixing, as far as rolling it out, as far as the texture. It makes for a very, very hearty pasta. You're going to want to put a really good thick sauce on that. This, because we're using just all-purpose flour, it's a softer pasta. So I would prefer to do this maybe just with some tossed olive oil, with sun-dried tomatoes, or a light pesto. There's all kinds, and we'll talk about sauces a little later on, but we're going to start with pasta. Okay, I'm getting off subject. I guess I better drink. Okay, so got our flour in here. And there's also a teaspoon of salt. I really love this little guard because I tend to be a messy cook. In here, I have 2 large eggs and a tablespoon of olive oil. And all I'm going to do is dump that in. And we're going to let it mix. Now, one of 3 things is going to happen. The first is not going to happen. It's going to come out perfect and it's going to be really, really smooth and everything's going to be great. Yeah, that's not going to happen. The second is it's going to kind of look like cornmeal, which is looking like what's happening. And then I'm going to add a little bit of water at a time. Or it would come out pretty sticky and then you'd have to add more flour. This is definitely looking like cornmeal here. We still need to let it go a bit more. You want to let this go a full 2 minutes. Don't rush it. Take it good and slow. Be patient. Enjoy the 2 minutes. Really, it's good for you. But still, we're going to need to add water to this. So I usually suggest adding the water about a tablespoon at a time. I've done this before, so I've got a pretty good eye. After we're done with this, what we're going to do is we're going to knead it for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to let it rest for at least 15 minutes up to 2 hours. At this point, actually, too, once it's kneaded, you could freeze it if you want to perform the rest of this later. But why don't we check back in a little bit when it's mixed up.